Well, greetings and salutations, fellow members of the movie club. I hereby call this session, this meeting to order. I am, of course, your host of today. You'll find coffee and donuts in the corner. My name is John Campea, and welcome to Movie Club, the weekly get-together where we talk just simply about our favorite movies of the last 25 years or so. And today, ladies and gentlemen, it is a treat for myself, for the people in this room, for the people watching, and nay, a treat for the people of the world, as we celebrate the most underrated comic book film of all time, the masterpiece of the genre, Henry Cavill's Man of Steel. And that is what we are here to talk about, turning 9 years old. 9 years. Next year will be its 10th anniversary, which is absolutely crazy. And of course, joining me, Movie Club regular, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how are you doing today, sir?
I am a movie-holic, and I freely admit that, Mr. Campea, and to all of you here watching.
It's like a book club. This isn't an AA meeting.
Oh.
You're in the wrong meeting.
Well, I'm addicted, John.
Yes. Over here, of course, Ray Orr is joining us. Ray, how you doing?
How you doing?
And we are here today, guys, of course, to talk about Man of Steel. Now, here's how this is going to go. We're going to spend the first probably half of it just talking about it amongst ourselves in here. And then we're going to go over and take your guys' thoughts about Man of Steel. Now, unfortunately, the super chats are now completely full before we even started the show. So if you got one in before the show started, hang tight. You'll hear us read off your comments, observations, and theories, whatever, about Man of Steel once we talk about it a little bit here. And we're so glad you guys are joining us for this. So, guys, let's talk about Man of Steel. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room first. There are a lot of people who don't like Man of Steel. And it is still absolutely baffling to me how there is anybody who appreciates the comic book genre that does not love this movie. And all film is subjective. Not everybody's going to love every movie. I get it. I do. But the one that really makes me shake my head and scratch my head is Man of Steel. I just thought this was the most pure, authentic feeling rendition about what would happen if Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, actually crashed to Earth today. And as a child growing up as so different as he was, trying to find his place in the world. And on top of all that, it is some of the best action you'll ever see in any movie, comic book or otherwise. A fantastic performance by Henry Cavill as Kal-El. An epic battle to save the world at the end. An incredible confrontation, not just of two superpowers, but also two battling ideologies and seemingly well-meaning goals, with Superman trying to save the world for humanity, General Zod trying to save the race of Krypton. I mean, this thing is just so brilliant on every level. Rob, you and I were talking about that beforehand. Why do you think there are a good number of people out there who don't appreciate this movie the way we believe it should be appreciated?
Well, John, it's interesting to me that I too, like you, I love this film. And I've looked at it in two different ways. One, I've always seen this as a science fiction film first and a comic book adaptation second, in that when this movie opens, we see sort of a Krypton we haven't seen before. It's more like on the cover of a 70s prog rock record, like Yes songs or something, and we get a vision of Krypton that we haven't seen before, with all of this incredible future technology, and the design work is very striking. It's very new and it's different. Whereas before, I think that, like the Richard Donner Superman and then Bryan Singer's follow-up, Superman Returns, leaned into the American mythology of it all. Superman being the mythic extraterrestrial immigrant to this country that has to find his way. And it kind of, when you hear John Williams' score, and Superman or young Clark is with his mother in the fields, the wheat fields of Kansas after his father's passed away, and the camera sweeps away and you hear those French horns. Da na 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 na. It's great, but it goes to the heart of the American myth the same way that a John Ford Western does. But this film embraces more of initially science fiction origins. I mean, I know Donner's film with its crystalline cities and all that, but there was something a lot more pulp science fiction about the opening of this film. And then this is following on the heels. Christopher Nolan's a producer on this movie, and what he did with his Dark Knight trilogy, which was film it in real American cities as opposed to Tim Burton's Anton Furst production design Gotham. This film is set, like you said, John, in our world. It's not set in a world that's removed from us. It's as close to our world as we can get. And I think that maybe that's where there's kind of a disconnect, in the sense that it's kind of harder to accept a Superman that's more real. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I hear what you're saying. Ray, you watched this movie again the other night, what's your general impressions of the film?
You know what? I've been trying to think about why at first I didn't like this movie. I thought I didn't like, from what I remember, I only watched it once, and I remember I didn't think it was bad, but I told myself, I would never watch it again. So to me, that came off as like maybe I didn't like it. But after rewatching it, I'm like, what did I not like about it? And so I've been trying to think about what was my argument against it, and I couldn't. It's a good movie, I think. Now after rewatching it, I started looking up the comic movies that were released during that time.
Right.
We had just came off The Avengers, which was released on May 4th, 2012. Right. I don't know about anyone else, but when the Avengers movies come out, it takes me a long time to get over them. Like Endgame, it took me a full year to get over that. The first Avengers, probably something like that too. Then the next movie that came out was Iron Man 3, May 3rd, 2013. And then Man of Steel.
Yeah.
In June 2013. And then, I don't know. Maybe it was the comic book fatigue that maybe I judged it on.
I don't know if it was fatigue. I often talk about that. I think it was the fact that Marvel was now crescendoing, right? They'd come off the Avengers, all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden we're introduced to a very different kind of comic book movie than the ones Marvel's have been putting out. And the first movie of a new franchise. And it probably just threw some people off. I think the other thing is that, and I only say this, I don't want to put words in other people's mouths. I only say this because I heard many people say this. They wanted the Christopher Reeve, gosh golly, 1960s, let me get that kitten out of your tree Superman, rather than one that felt more real to our day. And I think for those people who went in to watch Man of Steel expecting that kind of Superman, they want the little curl and, gosh golly, everybody. Like
the bright suit.
The bright suit, the bright colors.
Pearly whites.
Yep.
Like saving a kid from getting run over on the street. I understand that. And plus, if Iron Man 3 was like the last thing before, I don't want to put two universes together, but we got a lead character in Robert Downey Jr. that was like, had the quick jokes, the smart ass. Then we get into Superman. Man. Yeah, Superman is like half this movie, he's like a soldier. He is an alien somewhat, as in he's something about him didn't feel human. Well, he's not human, but didn't feel like relatable.
I know what you mean.
He didn't even know how to relate to himself. That's the key to this. He was a guy he didn't even know what he was genetically. He had no idea what he was, where he came from. He was seeking his place and identity in the world. And that's the Clark Kent that we get in this. And that's how I thought they played him. I thought they played him very well that way.
I totally agree with you. And I think the level, when you're watching Avengers and we talk about it, I was talking about it earlier today. When you're sitting in that theater watching Avengers, it's so much fun. Watching Loki, Tom Hiddleston's Loki, lead the forces of the Chitauri in portals that are opening in New York City with these giant, like almost dragon-like spacecraft. And it's fun. It's hell's a poppin', comic book right off the pages of a comic book with all the color and all the wacky. You've got Hulk and Black Widow and Captain America and Iron Man and Thor himself fighting aliens that look like alien crazy creatures. And it's the tone of it is like you're watching a cartoon, like the greatest cartoon you've ever watched, but still it puts a huge smile on your face. Well, in Man of Steel, when Clark starts manifesting his powers in school and his X-ray vision, takes control of him, it's terrifying for him.
Yeah.
And it's played traumatizing. And he doesn't know what's happening. And normally, whenever we see like Tobey Maguire discovering his powers in Spider-Man 1. It's a joyous, fun scene, you know, and he's using his webs and climbing up walls, and it's like, wow, I want to be that guy, you know. But when you watch what's happening to Clark in Man of Steel, I wouldn't. He's terrified. He winds up hiding in a closet, and his mother has to come get him.
Yeah, shaking in fear.
And nobody understands what the hell's happening, and it's played more like a horror film.
See, that's what's different with this movie is in those like Spider-Man movies, when they discover their powers, you get that little redemption point where the bully, you know, the bully comes and then, no, I turn the tables on you. We don't get that satisfaction with this movie. Like the bullies still bully him. He can't do anything because everyone knows who's watching.
One moment, although he doesn't really do to the bully, with the truck scene. When the one trucker was, and you just, I love that when the trucker goes, come on, get, and he shoves him and he almost knocks himself backwards. But then Clark just walks out, and then the guy goes outside and he finds his truck tied around a bunch of posts and all that kind of stuff. But you're right, he didn't actually do anything to the bully himself.
But even yet, in that situation, it wasn't like a fun tone. It was very serious. It was like there was no pie in the face on that guy. That guy could have physically got hurt. That's the whole thing with this movie. It was a different, especially to begin their DC universe. It set the tone of what was going to come later on. And that might not be a tone that a lot of people wanted to see from a bright Superman. For me, I love the look of Henry Cavill. I think he's a perfect Superman. I love the suit. I don't care if the colors were toned down. The new symbol. I liked everything about the Superman, the look himself, and even the way he acted, because I truly believe Superman should be somewhat alien towards the humans, you know? The problem with me with this movie, if anything, was I couldn't get attached to an alien like I would like a human. Like you know what I mean? He just seemed a little off.
I totally agree with you. And if you think about Donner's Superman, when you see Clark manifesting his powers when he's in high school, he kicks a football. You know, he runs next to a train and waves to young Lois Lane, you know, and it's fun. Now, in this movie, I think a lot of people, like what he did to the truck driver was a little controversial. That he went in and this bully, he like destroyed his truck.
Yeah, I found that a little disturbing, actually, at the end of Superman 2, right?
Well, no, but I mean in this movie.
Oh, like in this one.
But at the end, same with the truck. I've been working out, you know, at the end of Superman 2. But in this movie, I think people were taking it back like that was a little petty of Clark Kent because we expect him to be the do-gooding, truth, justice, and American way that we're used to, but he hasn't become that guy yet. He doesn't know anything about himself, and he's been traveling around the world trying on a journey of self-discovery, and he's probably seen a lot of the worst that humanity has to offer, and he has the power to rebuff or teach bullies a lesson, but he doesn't even know. I mean, he had a great upbringing with his father, you know, and a lot of people objected to the fact that Jonathan Kent dies in that
which we are going to talk about at length in a minute. We're going to talk about it at length at that.
But it wasn't. Superman is not the Superman in this movie, or before when he's just Clark. He's not the Clark people have known and have fallen in love with. He's a guy who doesn't know who he is. He's a guy who has, even when he rescued kids in his fellow schoolmates,
he was reprimanded for it.
He was reprimanded for it, and there's no victory there. There's no like dun dun as he rescues, he pushes the school bus up out of the water, and that's also terrifying. The kids are scared of him.
Yeah, they're about to drown
himself.
Well, listen, I want to touch on that for a second about that whole moment there, because that brought up another kind of controversial moment that was even in the trailer that a lot of people took umbrage with and they were disappointed by. After he saves those kids in the bus, he has a discussion with his father, Jonathan Kent, played brilliantly by Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
To which young Clark says to his dad, what was I supposed to do? Let them die? And there's a pause. Pa Kent says, maybe. And a lot of people say, well, how can you say that? And I think this ties into him dying later. What I think a lot of people who watch this movie do not understand is that Pa Kent, Jonathan Kent, was of the absolute conviction, not just that Clark wasn't ready, his son was not ready for the world to know who he is. He was of the absolute conviction that the world was not ready to know who and what he is. Because Jonathan Kent believed, and he explained this to his son, he says, when the world finds out what you are, it's going to change everything. It's going to make us question, it's going to make humanity question everything about who and what we are in this world and in this universe. And when they find out about you, you're going to then have a choice about what kind of man you're going to be. Because for good or bad, whoever you choose to be is going to forever alter the fate of the world. And understanding that Jonathan Kent's absolute conviction was on that the world itself was not ready for this. And as a father, that's the context in which he said to Clark when he says, what was I supposed to do, let him die? And as a father and as a guy who's worried about what's going to happen to the entire planet when the planet finds out who he is, he says, maybe. I mean, there was something so authentic and real about that to me that it shook me when he said that line. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree. And if you think about it, for all Jonathan Kent knows, this is some kind of messianic, godlike figure. He doesn't necessarily know he's an extraterrestrial. He might have fallen from heaven. He might be a fallen angel. You don't know. Jonathan Kent doesn't know. And he's thinking, I'm sure, you know, the last time a godlike entity was sacrificed or put down on earth, he got nailed. He was crucified for it. And I'm sure that there's some of that in Jonathan Kent's mind and his mindset and his thinking as well. I don't want to see what happened to you happen to the last savior that came down from heaven, if you know you choose to be a part of that. And I think that there's definitely some of that there. And Jonathan Kent knows the world has never done very well with figures like Clark, ever.
You know, I was going to say that I just realized this is one of those rare movies where I've watched it and time just made me appreciate it more. As in, like, I don't remember if I bashed this movie when I first saw it. I know I didn't bash it. I know I didn't want to watch it again. But after watching it again last night, this is actually a really good movie. Like, I think time and what we've had in between 2013 up until now, I think it has helped me appreciate the movie more.
I totally agree.
Like, the tone is different from a lot of things that we have right now. And I appreciate that tone now. Back then, I may not have appreciated it. Like the thing you said about his dad, what he said to him, it's more profound to me now. That like it hits me different now. Like, you know, and that's the main thing. It's like people try to argue and tell you this movie is whatever, this and that. I think time is ultimately the only thing that will change anyone's opinion. And it changed mine on this movie.
Well, and then I want to tie that back in too, because that whole thing about him saying maybe to his son, right? That goes into what is probably the second most controversial moment in the movie. The most controversial, of course, him breaking Zod's neck, which was absolutely necessary. We'll talk about that in a minute. But is the moment where Jonathan Kent dies, right? Again, people miss the point of this scene. Because they're saying, well, he could have saved him. Yeah, he knows he could have saved him. But in that moment, again, Jonathan Kent, who was of the absolute conviction that Clark was not ready for the world to know who he is, and that once the world knows who he is, it's going to create a cataclysm for Earth itself, for the people of the world. It's going to change everything in the world, and his belief that the world was not ready. And when Jonathan Kent realized he was about to die, and he saw Clark was about to make a move to come save him, that's why Jonathan Kent held up his hand and said, no, because yeah, I'm one life, but you're not ready for this and the world's not ready and the stakes are too high. And having just had an argument with his dad in the car, I think that's key. Because remember, before the tornado hit, they were in the car arguing with each other, right? And having this spat, and Clark said something he wished he didn't say. But it was in that moment too, when he holds up his hand, and all Clark wants to do more than anything else in the world is run over there, the world be damned. He wants to run over there, let everybody see him, save his dad. But when his dad put up his hand, he in that moment decided to honor his dad. He honored his father. He honored what his father believed. He honored his father's wishes. And he stayed his ground. And Jonathan Kent died believing what he believed. He died for that conviction that he had, that the world was going to need his son. And when the time was right and when they were ready, and the world and the time wasn't right yet. And I chuckle inside, actually, when I hear people criticizing this scene, to me, which is a profound, beautiful, it takes a lot of thought to really grasp the scene. All I do is chuckle when I hear people, oh, Superman let his dad die. It's like, well, if you don't get it, I can't explain it to you. I don't know, Rob, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're exactly right. And the thing is, people are expecting your traditional Superman that we've seen countless times over the years, over the decades. the Superman from the animated series, the Christopher Reeve Superman, the George Reeves Superman from the 50s Adventures of Superman television show, the apple pie, you know, Truth, Justice, American Way, saving kittens, that Superman would never find himself in this kind of a situation. He just wouldn't, because he's exposed himself to the world. Well, I'm not just Superman, I'm the greatest reporter ever. You know, I'm going to be Clark Kent, and I'm not going to stand back in the shadows. I'm going to be the best reporter at the Daily Planet and the coolest person on earth. And you know, everyone likes that, but in the real world, in our world, would that fly? And this is the moment that I think is the most, it's a big demarcation from this Superman mythos that everyone has known and loved and expect. Right. This is one of those moments where you totally are like, wait a minute, that's not the Superman I know. And so what happens is people aren't really trying to contemplate what's happening in the movie. What they're doing is they're reacting to what they expected to get that they're not getting. And rather than trying to understand why was this choice made, it's just rejected.
That's probably the.
And I understand why.
Yeah, that's probably the trouble that I ran into. Just expectations of what people were used to seeing in Superman. Like, you know, to me, after the ending, I hate to skip, but that ending, I want another one now. Yeah. Like, because that would have shown the Clark Kent, the one that we're used to, in the building, doing the day-to-day job, trying to juggle stuff.
It's the end of the movie where you start to see the Clark Kent and whatever that we know. But I want to go all the way back to the beginning, because Rob, you made mention about something that I think is interesting about, you know, Clark's been traveling the world, maybe seeing a lot of bad in people. There's a scene in this movie that I think every time I watch the movie now, it becomes more and more important to me. But it's right near the beginning of the film, like after we get past Krypton. By the way, I love the way they portrayed Krypton.
Me too.
All that kind of stuff. I love the fact that General Zod is a multi-dimensional villain, that yes, he will be ruthlessly cruel and violent, but ultimately everything about him is just wanting to save his people. And you cannot help but empathize with that a little bit. But right near the beginning of the film, after Krypton, one of the first things we see happen to Clark is that he's on, you know, Deadliest Catch. He's on an episode of Deadliest Catch.
Right.
He's out in the middle of the Atlantic. You know, he's a fisherman with everything. And he gets distracted by something, and one of the cages is about to fall on him. I think this scene is key to understanding Clark. Because in this scene, what happens is another fisherman, a mortal, fragile, brittle human, realizes this cage is about to fall on him, and this brittle little human risks his own life to run and dive and tackle Clark out of the way. Now, of course, you and I know that if that cage had landed on Clark, ain't nothing was going to happen to Clark.
Right.
But this fragile human being didn't know that. And we see an adult Clark. Our first exposure to adult Clark is him experiencing a fragile mortal human being risking his own life to save him. And I think that is profoundly impactful on Clark and who he is and his belief. When you combine that with understanding who his parents were growing up and the types of values that were instilled in him, and this never-ending quest he had that he was on at that time, scavenging the world, trying to figure out some clues to who he was and where he comes from, and helping people along the way. There's a little bit of Incredible Hulk in that too, right?
Oh, no,
you could almost hear
sure.
that piano music, do, 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 as he's walking away, right?
Also, you know, after that scene's over, when he saves everyone that's on the oil derrick,
the oil driller,
the oil derrick, and there's the moment when he's in the ocean, and he's suspended in the water, and the whale, you know, there's the scene with the whale. And to me, that's a moment that could only happen in really, I guess you could have an Aquaman movie, but since Aquaman talks to sea life, it's not so big of a deal, where he probably hangs out with whales all the time. But for Superman, that image I thought was such a strikingly beautiful image.
It was.
And it also reiterates the fact that, you know, as far as we're concerned, whales are alien life as well. And Superman almost has more of a kinship at that moment. Kal-El, or Clark, has more of a kinship with the other creatures of the world other than mankind. You know, and it's just a beautiful moment where you have these two different, I mean, you have an alien from Krypton and you have this beautiful creature from the sea that isn't a human being, but as much a citizen of the earth as ever. And the two of them kind of have this gorgeous moment together. And it reiterates that they are both creatures that are not of the terrestrial earth that humanity is from. and yet Superman is here for all of the Earth.
Well, and I also took it as, because remember, as he's floating there in the water, his eyes closed, he's under the water, he's remembering back, he has that flashback to him as a kid where everything's chaos. I kind of took that scene of him floating in the water, not so much personally, not so much about the whale itself, but I just had it as, yeah, this is big explosion, got the guys off the oil rig, but this is his actual moment of peace. You see,
no.
like, he's got to be in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to be and 20 feet under the water to just get a moment of quiet and peace.
Totally
You know
agree.
what I mean?
It's 100% that as well. But I love the fact that he was sharing that moment with another creature of the earth, you know, and I thought that was something that was unique to him. I love that moment that they even took the time to stop, you know, and show that, like you said, John, he does have peace, but he does have peace not just with humans, but with the rest of and because he speaks for Earth. He doesn't just speak for mankind. He speaks for the entire planet. And that plays into what happens later in the film. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I do love is we're talking all about Clark's story, but there's also the superheroic aliens, the villainous Zod and Kaora and the minions that come down. We can't forget that this is still a kick-ass superhero movie that has the greatest battle between two superheroes ever committed to celluloid, in my mind.
No, it's absolutely true. So let's start to skip through the movie a little bit here. So we've come through Krypton. We get the introduction of him that we understand this is now a Clark, an adult man going through the world, trying to figure out his identity, who and what he is, and trying to help people along the way. We meet Lois, and we've come together then in the Canadian North as they're finding this ship, of course, buried in 20,000-year-old ice. Now, for those of us who read the prequel comic, we know that ship they find under the ice is actually the ship of Clark's cousin, Kara. It's actually her ship that flew to Earth 20,000 years earlier and crash landed there. Who she was in the ship with didn't survive it. Of course, they find his body. But Kara, you remember in the scene when they go into the ship, there's the pod with the dead Kryptonian in it, but then there's another pod that's open. Well, in the prequel comic, you see after they crash, Kara gets out of the pod and just walks off into the wilderness, as it were, and we never find out what happens to her after that. Some people theorize she became the origin of Themyscira.
Yeah.
That she became the origin of the Amazonians.
Which
But
I
that's
love
just a
that
theory.
idea. I know people objected to that, but after I read that prequel comic, I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And people, I don't like that. But I like that.
Yeah, then some people thought she became the mother of Atlantis.
Yeah.
That she actually became the mother of Atlanteans and stuff like that. So whatever the theory is, I mean, it's all good, but it's there that we come across again the guy who I think is the best actor in the world right now that Daniel Day-Lewis is retired, Jor-El, played by Russell Crowe. God, I loved his performance in this. Everything from when the movie starts and Lara's giving birth, just the way he plays everything, the way he engages with the Kryptonian Council, the way he engages with Zod. I love the way he says that line, "I will honor the man you were and not the man you've become now." Like just all of that. And then when we get to meet his AI on the ship and he's introducing Kal-El and he's just answering everything matter of fact. A lot of times in these movies, when you meet a character that has the answers, they'll speak cryptically or whatever. Kal-El, where do I come from? You come from a planet named Krypton. We did this, and this. Well, what's this? Well, that happens to be that. And he's just like straightforward answering the questions. And by the way, I love when the AI is engaging in helping Lois escape off of Zod's ship. He's like, every time she turns a corner, he's standing there pointing in a direction. She said, there he is again, pointing in another direction, and just whoosh, and like closing the door. I freaking love that scene. I thought that
might
was
be
awesome.
the happiest part in this movie, like the most enjoyment.
It's like a caper.
Yeah.
We're going to escape the clutches of the building.
And he
right
was
now.
there to like sew up storylines that need to be connected too.
Yes.
It was a very smart way of doing it. Instead of having like a 50 minute scene, or like he just told them what it is. Okay, so she knows that now. You know what I mean?
And by the way, a terrific scene in the third act as Zod confronts the AI of Jor-El again. And even like the debate, the philosophical, even Zod says, I'm tired of this debate. On and on. I mean, I love that conversation, that confrontation. But again, we saw that Zod was just trying to resurrect his people. He was trying to save his civilization.
Because it had been destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a great motivation for you. I mean, he just wants to save the memory of it's not just that his people are gone, it's the entire civilization that lasted for thousands of years. And remember, they were already exploring the galaxy. This was a spacefaring important race that was proud and technologically advanced and probably the pinnacle of what our galaxy or whatever had to offer. And it was a great loss as far as he was concerned. And humanity far less evolved than they were. And, you know, did we really deserve to be here when the superior force shows up? I don't know. Maybe Zod was right.
I don't know. That bowl cut wasn't right.
Ray, before we started doing this, he was saying, man, I think if Zod was here today, I would cyberbully him all the time. About that bowl cut.
It was intimidating. You know what? The lady, I would not want to meet her in the dark. Yeah, she
was
whole
awesome.
The first time I watched this in the theater, I remember whenever she showed up, I was scared. Like deep down inside, I was like, she's gonna either kill someone I like on the screen, like maybe Lois Lane, or do something bad. She seemed more evil than Michael Shannon's character, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just one of those movies where if you're kind of dull and you don't get the nuance of like almost Shakespearean level storytelling, and all you're looking for in comic book movies is bang, flash, bang, and you just want a Superman that goes and rescues a kitten out of a tree, I get it. This movie's not going to be for you. And you know, it's just, and all film is subjective. You cannot have any expectations of Man of Steel. You can just go into Man of Steel clean and watch it, and it may not be for you, and that's totally cool too. But I remember, like, even with Schnepp, like Schnepp wasn't so sure about what he felt of Man of Steel, and like a couple of years later, we did the live commentary of Man of Steel, and he was like, after it was the second time watching, his first time since the movie came out, and he was like, how did I not love this movie the first time
Exactly.
I saw it? Like, this movie's fantastic.
It takes some time for some people for it to sink in. Mine was last night. I wasn't going to be on the show if I didn't, like I told you, I'm not going to be on the show if I didn't at least enjoy the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. And my opinion has changed on this movie. There's still some parts that I laugh at just because it's just the time. Also, time has affected it. But I'm telling you, I haven't seen fights like this in a movie. Like, I don't remember how cool, I didn't remember how cool the fights were. It reminds me of a lot of the moves that you do in the Injustice video game.
Yes.
Right.
Where it's like super fast and then the guy just like slams into rocks. I loved every punch thrown in this. It looked so cool, and I don't think time affected that. I think the effects look great still.
No, I think that one of the things, obviously, this film is subverting expectations that we all had of what a Superman film was supposed to be. I think that the filmmakers, Zack Snyder and his collaborators, succeeded in making the film that they wanted to make. Like, they didn't set out to make a film and fail in making the movie. Sometimes people fail in making the movie they set out to make. They made exactly the movie they set out to make here. And I think that it is a very successful vision, a directorial vision for what this movie is supposed to be. And that's why I enjoy it. It might be different, but I grew up reading DC Elseworld stories. But when you finally get down to the nitty gritty and Zod and his forces start fighting Kal-El, who, lest we not forget, he's known of his alien heritage for like a few days.
Like 48
hours. You know,
yeah,
and
about 48 hours.
I mean, there's a great moment when he first flies. I mean, imagine, it's not like he's adept at flying. He doesn't know how to navigate the gravity of the earth and how fast he can fly and how strong he is. He doesn't know all of this. And he's coming up against a force of trained soldiers. But to be fair, they don't know how to work on Earth either.
Right. That's how it balanced.
It was all balanced out. So, but they have more training. But when you start seeing them fight, if you saw like Superman 2 with Terrence Stamp as Zod and Non and Ursa, it's kind of funny. Like, their battles are funny. Let's throw Superman into a Coca-Cola sign. Hey. But the fighting in this is fast, it's hard, it's brutal, it's dangerous, and this battle will consume, very 9/11-esque. The carnage that will be wrought when these forces come together is going to be extreme, and it's going to be awful.
And listen, this is, to me, I love 300. Don't get me wrong, and I like his other DC offerings too. This is Zack Snyder's best movie, and like the combat, he employs some techniques like that as Superman's flying through the air, that over-the-shoulder technique that they used in the video game, as you were pointing out, where the camera is just behind Superman, just over his shoulder, as he's zooming through the sky and closing in on Zod's body flying around, and then hitting it again, and then zooming up to and hitting again.
That was so cool, man.
He always makes sure there's no shaky cam in the combat. He always makes sure, even though it's quick and fast and frenetically paced, you always feel like you're up in the experience of the action. And I just love that. Now, let's talk about one of the elephants in the room that some other people mindlessly complain about, which is like the destruction that happens as a result of them fighting. Again, I laugh on the inside at people that complain about this, because you have Kal-El, a guy who only knew he was from off-world 48 years, no idea where he's from, what his heritage. He doesn't know the extent of his powers. He is not trained in combat. He's a farmer. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of born and bred, designed genetically to be soldiers, all with identical superpowers to his own, show up in the world. And he's had his Superman suit for like 48 hours. And a massive fight breaks out. And I love how people pretend, well, he's a master of all this sort of thing. He could have had this fight in a way that nothing got damaged. What the fuck are you talking about? Do you hear yourself speaking when you say nonsense?
Well,
like
that's
that?
also the
Rob, here's the thing. If you and I got in a big fist fight right now, okay? If you and I got in a big fist fight right now, doesn't matter which one of us is the better fighter, doesn't matter all that kind of stuff. The fact of the matter is, if a fight breaks out right now, if I wanted to take that fight out to the front yard, there's still going to be a lot of damage in this room before we're able to get it out there. A lot of damage in this room before I'm able to get you out there.
I would move you out, because we couldn't stream tomorrow if we damaged.
Well, that's the thing. There'd be a lot of damage in here.
He had no concept of collateral damage yet.
Well,
because this is like the first big
option to avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, how could you?
You got these super-powered beings, these alien gods, who are military trained, and you ain't. You're a freaking farmer. And throwdown starts happening, and it's like, oh, well, he paid no attention to the collateral. No, of course he did. Everything that he did in this movie was about trying to save lives. And by the way, at the end of the movie, he saved 6 billion lives. And in the process of doing it, some buildings got wrecked, because that's where they were. That's where these Kryptonians were. And then he's faced with a General Zod after he destroys the Genesis Chamber. He literally takes away General Zod's meaning for existing. He takes it away from him. General Zod, before the final fight begins, puts it in no uncertain terms. I now have nothing to live for. I have no people.
No people.
I have no people.
You killed my people.
They literally, and he laid it out for Clark. He said, I now have one reason to breathe, to kill every human being on the earth. That's now my one reason for existing. My other purpose is now gone. So I have nothing left but to make you suffer by killing every single man, woman, and child on this planet. And that's all I'm going to do. And I've got the power to do it. And it's within that context that this fight breaks out. And as the fight goes on, Zod gets more and more powerful, because as a trained soldier, he's learning to master his senses and collect the power that Clark has gotten a little bit of a handle on. And this massive fight, because even when Clark tries to take the fight to space, it eventually ends up back down, because he had no choice in the matter. And yes, some people say to me, well, he could have flown off somewhere and lured Zod out. Zod wasn't after him. Zod wanted to kill every man, woman, and child. And if Superman didn't engage with them, all he would have been doing is sitting there slaughtering people.
And there's 2 giant Kryptonian machines on either side of the world engines.
Well, they've been taken out by that point, but yes.
But even those things, I mean, he doesn't know what they are, and the gravitational forces that are involved in all of this stuff. He goes and he sacrifices. He didn't know what was going to happen to him. He didn't know if he was going to die. He didn't know if he was going to live. And he went and selflessly takes him out, and he's doing all he can to save people. And look, if he's punched by Zod, he has no control over what building he's going to fly through. I mean, he's fighting forces that have never been unleashed on the planet Earth before, even in the largest meteor hit, maybe that the dinosaurs were extinct in. We're dealing with forces even beyond those. And that's what's going on. He's trying to mitigate the damage, but there's nothing he can do. These forces are unleashed that he can't stop them. There's not a moment where he can be like, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am, let me move you out of harm's way."
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's not. That would be just lame if he did that. That's not possible. He's in a fight. The two things that you brought up to me, the dad dying and the collateral damage of the people. When I first watched it, I remember people bringing those things up to me, but those things didn't bother me at all. That didn't ruin the movie. It's actually coming back, and I think the biggest thing for me of why I may not have liked it in the beginning was I didn't expect. There's that word again. An origin story throughout a 2-hour movie.
Right.
And then when they gave us the Clark Kent, the one working at the Daily Planet at the end, I think that's when it hit me that I didn't appreciate the movie as an origin. I was like, no, I wanted to see that from that moment on.
Yeah.
The one that worked at the newspaper, because that's all I saw from the previous movies.
I think you struck you that's a very good point.
And that's what it was. That's why I left the theater. I think if I remember, not really disappointed in the movie, but just not like highly talking about it either. I just said, oh, it's all right. I won't watch it again. And that's because of that ending. Now I love this ending.
Yeah.
But back then I was like, wait a second. So I sat through 2 hours not to get to the Clark Kent that I like.
Well,
the one that takes off the uniform and shows the big S and flies out of the building. That's what I wanted to see. And that's why.
And I think a lot of people did.
I think that's exactly right, but that's why the movie's called Man of Steel. He's not Superman yet.
And as I get older, I get smarter still. So I know all that stuff now. No, I'm telling you, it's never... You could appreciate things when you get older.
Yeah.
I mean, and I appreciate this movie a lot more than I did back then.
So let's move on to the biggest controversial part of Man of Steel, which is you get to the end and he kills Zod. To which a lot of people who don't understand comic history go, Superman never kills. So I take it you never read the Superman comics then, if you think he never killed. But generally speaking, yeah, he tries not to kill. But Zack Snyder they wrote a story in which Clark found himself in an unwinnable situation. He now has a god in General Zod who has proclaimed that his one mission now in life is to kill every human being in the world. There are no kryptonite handcuffs to put on him. There's no prison on the planet that can hold him. There is literally nothing he can do to stop him. And then they find themselves in that train station, museum, whatever it is. And there's a family, a mom and dad, and a couple of kids. And he's got him in basically a rear naked choke. But he starts unleashing the heat vision, and he's trying to kill those people. Clark faces a decision. I either do what is unthinkable to me, which is kill the last living Kryptonian besides myself. So killing somebody, which Clark at this point had never done before, but also killing the last connection he has to his home world. I either have to do the unthinkable, or I have to accept that as I keep trying to battle this guy, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people will die as I continue to just try to have this back and forth fight with Zod.
How many more buildings are we going to throw
How
each
many
other
more
through?
buildings are going to come down? How many more millions of people are going to die? And that's the choice he faced. Like people saying, well, he could have just arrested him. With what? How? Put him where? He was literally in this spot. And I laugh because it's often the same people who complain about the collateral damage in the fight that then complain that he ends up killing Zod, and by doing so saving millions of lives, probably 6 billion lives in the process. But Zack Snyder, and I thought this was a really brave thing for him to do as a filmmaker, Zack Snyder in that moment created a situation for Clark where there was no easy answer and no good answer. There was no good answer.
And he had to make that judgment in a split second.
Right there. Or let those five, that family of 4 or 5 die.
You tried deciding something in like 2 seconds. Most of the time, half of us will get it wrong. Oh, we'll look back at it. He didn't have enough time to actually think, oh, should I fly up? Should I blow ice breath? But he didn't have ice breath, right?
No,
not yet.
Yeah,
And
so
that family represents all of humanity at that moment.
They represented humanity.
Yeah,
yes.
they represented all of us. And was he going to allow that heat vision to run through and cut that family right in half, which Zod was trying to do? He had no choice. You know, that's the thing I don't understand.
And then how many once he did that, how many other families were going to suffer?
How many other families would die? And what I don't understand is that's when he chooses that course of action, he saved the planet. He saved the planet. He saved all of us at a terrible cost. At a terrible cost to him personally. But there was no other choice. None. It's not like he took the lesser of two evils. There was no lesser of two evils. There was either Zod dies and you save the planet, or Zod lives and everyone on planet Earth dies. That's the only choice you have.
Yeah, and that's and I like the way, Ray, that you put that, was he did it in a moment where he had no time to sit down and have a philosophical thought process. He didn't get to fly back to the church and sit down with that priest again to figure things out. He was in that moment and he had to decide what he was going to do. And here's the thing too. I also love the fact that Zack Snyder, once he makes that decision and he snaps Zod's neck, that it wasn't lost on Zack Snyder that in that moment, Kal-El would be horrified by what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
I mean, he had to do it, but it doesn't mean it would be any less hard or any less horrifying. And that's why I love the way Henry Cavill played that moment. After he snaps his neck, it's like you think, woo, just saved the world. No, he lets out this guttural scream that it pained him so much to do what he did. So to me, he did what he logically and had no other choice but to do, and yet at the same time hated the fact that he had to do it. But the two terms are not mutually exclusive. They were both true. And you end on that moment. And I think that's really when that's the moment he became Superman,
right,
to be honest with you.
I completely agree with that.
And it's also that moment that changed a lot of people's opinion on the movie. It was that moment and then the end scene where you either it left a bad taste in your mouth because that's not your Superman, but if you got it, then you like that moment right there where he snaps Zod's neck. I remember leaving the theater, I was okay with it. I remember, I think it was Ryan that was watching with me. He's a big Superman fan. I just know what I know from movies. I believe he had a problem with that part, even just a little bit.
I think a lot of people did.
Many people did.
So it was like divided in that
But I
sense.
feel like they just did not understand. You know what it was? I think people were more upset that Zack Snyder put Superman in that no-win situation more than they are, because when I talk to somebody who didn't like that scene and I present it like that, I say, you honestly tell me Superman had any other choice? Ultimately, they'll concede and say, well, no, I guess he didn't have any other choice. So I said, what you're really mad at is that Zack Snyder put our hero in that situation where he had to make that choice. And that's what I thought was the bravest thing that Zack Snyder did.
I agree.
And let's not forget, everyone knew, even me, when we walked in the theater, this was the kickoff to the new DCEU.
To a new DCEU, yeah.
And we got Iron Man 1. How fun was that movie? That beginning. I hate keep constantly comparing, but this is what the time was at that time. Comic book movies were the thing. DC was about to start their new thing to go up against the Marvel universe, and we got a different tone, not so happy Superman. And there's some people that just didn't accept this tone, this thing that Zack Snyder
you were
was trying to
pointing
build.
out earlier, Ray, like at the end, having made those decisions and kind of becoming Superman in that moment, it's now a foregone. I have chosen humanity. Humanity is my family. You know, I chose humanity over Krypton. When he yelled out I thought it was a pivotal moment when he yelled at Zod. Krypton had its chance. Because in that moment, not only was he standing up to Zod, he was killing his real father's dream. He was killing Jor-El's dream. Jor-El put the Codex in him in the hopes that someday that Krypton could be restored and Earth and Krypton could live hand in hand. But when faced with that decision, well, it's either got to be humanity or Krypton. He chose Krypton and kind of killed Jor-El's dream because that's what he had to do. And because he made those decisions, we get to the end of the movie and now he's at the Daily Planet and now he's kind of becoming that Clark Kent that people recognize and think about more. But he had to go through he had to be his Moses going through the wilderness to
Right.
get to that moment.
I mean, he's gone through that kind of loss and that kind of tragedy and that the thing that we all have in our lives that forge us into the people that we are. So while he was a man of steel, the end of the movie, he is Superman.
I really
he is that character. And
I really like that ending.
I mean, when
I
Lois
love the
Lane
ending.
says,
Yeah.
"Welcome to the planet,"
Yeah, it's double meaning.
Yeah,
It's
she's
a
talking
double
about
meaning.
lots going on there.
Let's get Man of Steel 2 now, please. Now, I never.
That's the biggest problem. That is the biggest problem with Man of Steel. The biggest problem with Man of Steel is that there isn't a Man of Steel 2.
Now I want it. I didn't know I wanted it until I rewatched this.
And I'll tell you,
I want it.
A Man of Steel 2 would have led into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice better, I think. We could have got to know Superman. How does he fit into the world with his dual life and seeing what happens? And then it would have been shocking at the end of let's call it Superman. It would have been shocking to have a movie that left us with all the Superman things we want, and then to go back to the opening of Dawn of Justice, where we see Bruce Wayne in this universe running into the destruction that was wrought at the end of Man of Steel. I wish we could have had that because it could have really changed Warner Brothers, the duration or the direction of their entire DCEU.
And was it the audience reaction or the results, box office results, that caused Man of Steel not to get made? What was it?
It was, what happened was that DC was expecting, because Superman is the granddaddy of all superheroes. He's the king of all superheroes. And with where Marvel had built up the comic book genre, I think the guys at DC expected, and understandably so, they were thinking this was a 900, 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion dollar film, because Marvel, they watched Marvel had cultivate the comic book movie audience. Now everybody was into comic book movies. They had Superman, the greatest name in comic books, and the movie cleared 600 million. I don't think, Ray, you might look this up.
It's like 630 or something.
I don't think, it might have been in the higher sixes, but whatever. I just know it didn't hit
660 something.
So it was a combination of the fact that they, number one, didn't hit the box office numbers that they were kind of expecting to hit. And number two, they didn't get the audience response or the critical response.
This is not a kids movie.
No, and it's not meant to be a kids movie.
No.
And that is what I think made them go, well, shit. Well, everybody wants Batman versus Superman, so let's just do that now.
Yeah.
And I was there standing on the wing. I was standing on stage off in the wings when Zack Snyder was on stage, and I forget the name of the actor who played the general. He's in Blacklist.
Why? Oh,
The guy who plays Martian Manhunter.
yeah, of
Why am I
course.
freezing on his
I
name?
don't know his name.
I
Yeah.
love him in Blacklist. Anyway,
Why am I drawing up? Yeah.
but I was standing off in the wing
Matrix.
as he was on stage. Harry Lennox.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cinema Reviews. Harry Lennox. Thank you very much. When they were on stage and announcing, and Harry Lennox came out and read the quote from The Dark Knight Returns. I want you to remember it was me that beat you, Clark. I want you to remember, Clark. And Harry Lennox read it in this awesome voice. And everybody got excited, yes, and I got excited too. And I think everybody got excited. But I make no mistake, I think the reason they skipped over Man of Steel 2 went right to that was because they thought, well, they had no patience. Kevin Tsujihara was the wrong guy to be leading a studio that was trying to run DC. Now he's gone now. But I think that's why they rushed to that, is because the initial reaction, the fact that it didn't make the money they were hoping it would make.
I got those numbers for you. It's 291 million domestic, international 377 million, worldwide 668 million.
So 668. So, I mean, which is not bad. I mean, it made money, but it wasn't the hit they thought it would make, and they just felt like, well, we better jump right to Batman versus Superman.
There was a lot of expectation from a lot of sides in this movie. It kind of feels like there might have been too much on it, like from the fans, what they expected. Like you said, maybe the corporation, the company expected something out of it, and I think it was just unfair.
I think so too, and I think that I think the fan base expected more of a squeaky clean, colorful, gee, aw shucks, you're wearing pink underwear, Lois. Like in Superman the movie. That's what they wanted. Because they didn't like Superman Returns didn't have enough action, and it was more of, it's stalker Superman, or it was more emotional. And they wanted something that was the opposite of that, more along the lines of Superman the Animated Series, which isn't a bad idea. I mean, I've often told people if someone said, Rob, you can make any Superman movie you want right now, I would make a Superman for all seasons. that graphic novel and set it in each season. It would start with a title card that said spring.
All right. Well, guys, listen, we've got to now move over and hear from our fellow club members who've been writing in their thoughts and opinions and observations about Man of Steel. So let's jump over there now and see what they have to say. We're going to start things off with Jetfire 97. I will find him is one of my favorite moments. Oh, God, Michael Shannon's so good as Zod.
Except that one part.
My people.
My people.
I so love. Sounds gonna right, man. If Zod was around today, I would totally cyberbully him.
Just for that part, man.
And the haircut. All right, my people. All right,
people.
I love that moment too, Jetfire. Phoenix King Theo writes, Zimmer's score is the best comic book movie score in my opinion. I completely agree.
How did we not mention that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I never get tired of listening to it. If there is one thing DC has over Marvel, it's consistent good scores. I agree. Marvel's gotten better with their scores, but even back in the height of the DC versus Marvel wars, one thing I always said you got to give to Disney, the one mark that constantly goes to Disney is that their movies have better scores. But that leads me to something else I can't believe I didn't mention when we were talking about it. First Flight.
Dun-dun.
First Flight. The music in that scene, but the scene itself, I'm going to make a pretty big statement right here. No moment in comic book movie history has ever overwhelmed me with a sense of awe and wonder like First Flight.
Yeah, that
in
scene.
Man of Steel.
Oh,
You're just filled with dreams you're filled with this sense of wonder, this magnificence of it as the flying, your imagination is soaring with it, is taking his first flight, and that music, Hans Zimmer music that plays with it. I think I have never seen, I'm not saying Superman or Man of Steel is the best comic book movie of all time. I'm not saying that.
wow, I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it.
That's the most inspirational moment, the awe-inspiring moment in any comic book movie ever to me. Period. End of sentence. And the music had a lot to do with that.
Wow.
Man. The music had a lot to do with that. All right. Thanks for that, Phoenix King. All right. Hangaku Yukio writes, top 5 comic book movie for me ever. I don't know if I have it in my top 5 personally. I absolutely have it in my top 10. But it is easily the most underrated comic book movie ever made.
Oh, I think so too.
Like to me, it's for me, it's the third most underrated comic book film is the original Thor, directed by Kenneth Branagh. The second most underrated comic book film to me is Captain America: The First Avenger. Sorry, reverse that. Captain America: First Avenger, third most. Thor, the second most, and I think Man of Steel is the most underrated. Anyway, thanks for that. Next up, CJ Rebirth writes, if you love these people so much, you can mourn for them. I love that line. That made the whole scene and score just gets me every time. There's a couple of lines that the bad guys have. Like from, if you love these people so much, you can mourn for them. I love that line. Feora saying a good death is its own reward. And then the Colonel says it back to her as he flies it into the singularity and creates the Phantom Zone gate. But I think, to me, the most memorable villain line in it is also from Feora. When she says, and this is the part that really disturbed me, when she says, you cannot win. For every one of them that you save, we will kill 1,000,000 more. Like, not we'll kill 2 more. We'll kill 3. No, for every one you save, we will kill 1,000,000 more.
Those are some pretty big stakes.
I mean, that's it, right? Like Zack Snyder is constantly through this movie setting the stage, telling us, the audience, what exactly is at stake here. This wasn't some mom and pop like, oh, they're going to rob the bank and take away the future of the community center. No, for every one you save, we will kill 1,000,000 more. Freaking love that line. And I love the way she says it. All right. Santez Henderson writes, had a blast with the rewatch. Clark's hesitation to destroy the Genesis chamber was great, showing he is a man of 2 worlds, but has to choose in which he lives. And that's a great example, Santez, because not only was he pleading with Zod to stop so he wouldn't have to kill him, but there is even that moment of hesitation as he entered Zod's ship and he was going to destroy the Genesis chamber. Like he says, look, if you destroy the ship, you are killing Krypton. And there is a pause, not a huge pause, but a pause. And then he says, Krypton had his chance. And he destroys the ship.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So freaking good. Oh, and I can't believe I haven't even mentioned my favorite part of the movie. Easily my favorite part of the movie. That almost brings me to tears. After that whole conversation about what do you want me to do, let them die or blah, 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 and then he takes them in, he shows Clark the ship. He explains now Clark understands I'm not your real child. I'm from an alien world. And then Clark, by the way, this kid played Clark so well. Clark says to Jonathan, can't we just keep pretending I'm your son? And Jonathan Kent takes him, and the way Kevin Costner played this was so fucking good. He says, you are my son. And it's the way he says it, with a little bit of cracking in his voice, trying to sound strong, but he's falling apart on the inside, hearing his son say to him, I don't feel like I'm your actual son. Can't we just keep pretending you're son? He says, you are my son. I goosebumps. Check it out. The hair is standing up on my arm just thinking about that scene. It's by far my favorite moment.
Man, freaking tornadoes, man. Man, they come at it.
Damn tornadoes. Why live in Kansas? All right. Next up. Bad Vigilante writes, this movie with Zimmer score hits all the emotions. I agree. And again, Zimmer just won the Academy Award again.
I think that was his first Academy Award win.
Was it?
I think so.
I have to look that up. But, I mean, yeah, Zimmer's music, absolutely incredible in this, dude. Salamander Man writes, I will never understand the hate this movie gets. It has so much heart, yet everyone complained about the dumbest shit. It's an underrated film, and it's been almost 10 years and still no sequel. Yeah, and listen, I'll be honest with you, and cover your ears for a second, Henry. I don't think we're ever getting it.
No.
I don't think we're ever getting it. Now, Henry keeps saying, I got the cape is still in the closet, all that kind of stuff, and as long as he keeps hope alive, I'll try to keep hope alive. But I do not think that we're ever going to get another one. All right, guys, listen, we're going to just take a quick break here to thank the sponsor of today's meeting of Movie Club, the good folks at Manscaped, our superhero. Hey, guys, we want to take just a second and thank the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Now, listen, guys, it is not the 1970s anymore. It is not cool for a man just to let his balls look like the deepest, darkest jungles anymore. You want to keep them trimmed. You want to keep them tidy. And there's nothing I entrust more to the well-being of Dr. Jack Hammer and the amazing Fantastical than the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. This thing trims like a finely tuned machine for my finely tuned area. But wait, there's more. Because today I'm excited to let you guys know about Manscaped launching their new Ultra Premium Collection. Believe it or not, it's not for your not-so-private parts. I am talking about a leveled-up overall hygiene routine with your favorite manly scents. Now, in the special Ultra Premium Collection, we're talking about premium Manscaped deodorant. Don't just take care of your balls. Got to take care of them armpits, too, guys. A hydrating body spray. Listen, you got tattoos or issues with any dry skin? Well, this spray-on lotion is designed to keep your skin feeling moisturized, smooth, and dudes, smelling fresh. And you guys have heard me talk about the body wash. This body wash was a revelation to me. I use it every freaking day. They've also got a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, plus a free gift, a 3-pack set of lip balm for guys who are taking care of their lips. So here's what you need to do. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code Campea, Campea, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com. The power of attraction is now in a bottle, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. And special thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this meeting of Movie Club. All right. By the way, Ray looked it up as we were talking, and this was actually Hans Zimmer's second Academy Award. He won his first Academy Award for Lion King. So
that's animated. It's not real.
Yeah, it's not real if it's just animated. All right. Let's keep going here. By the way, we're being facetious here. Okay. Kal-El writes, long time, John, a.k.a. Good Canadian Kid. Well, thank you so much. This was the movie that introduced me to the movie verse. It's been awesome, and keep up the great content as always. Shout out to Ray for awesome graphics. Ray does do awesome graphics. That's seriously, it's been a hallmark of the videos that we've done ever since the AMC. Not everybody realizes. Ray was one of my very first hires. Like, actually, once I convinced AMC to let me launch a video show, because they first hired me to come over and run a blog. So they hired me as staff, and it was just a news blog. But I told them when I came over, I'm going to want to build towards making a video presence online. And when they finally agreed, I think my first hire was Ray.
Because I had been doing like small jobs for you. I mean,
yeah.
I was in a tough spot too. I mean, I was going off unemployment, whatever, at that time because mortgage shut down, whatever. But yeah, and then I think I was your actual first on
I
paper
still have
hire.
a picture somewhere.
Or was it Dennis? Me and Dennis came at the same time. I remember.
Yeah, but you were the first guy I brought in. Then I got Dennis after once we were doing video. I knew I had to get Dennis in, but I still have a picture of you because our first studio was the converted closet at AMC, the AMC Burbank 16, right?
Yeah.
And I still got a picture of Ray in that converted closet with a vacuum out as we were getting ready to move things in. We were trying to get that thing set up, and Ray was there for that.
And that place was nice until one of the workers said, "Yeah, rats fall from the ceiling."
Yeah, I remember because when the rainy season started, we could literally sometimes, because it was one of those drop hanging ceilings.
You could hear
rats running through the ceiling. We're like, this is no good. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. All right, anyway, let's keep going here. Next up, we've got Pablo Zungana writes, I love Man of Steel. I love it so much. Made me love Soups, and I'm sad the pseudo sequels didn't live up. Bring Cavill back. I mean, listen. You know me, Henry Cavill. I know it's almost sacrilegious to say, but Henry Cavill is my all-time favorite Superman. I just think he's great for this. I think he showed that more and more. Like even once we get into Justice League, you start to see him even evolve more as Superman. His Superman's evolving more and more, right? And I would love to see him come back. I mean, again, I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately, Pablo. All right, next up, 2 writes. One standout flaw I had is the time jump where he finds the spaceship and suit. I felt like there was no build-up at all. Otherwise, I like this movie a lot. But I don't know that there was no build-up. Because, number one, how do you build up finding something?
Yeah.
But remember, there was like a 10-minute build-up to that. Because when Lois... You got to watch carefully for this. Because I missed this the first time I saw the movie. When we first meet Lois Lane and she lands in the wintry military camp for the very first time. And she steps off the helicopter, and there's a military guy there to greet her. So, Miss Lane, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Before she says hello and is greeted by the military guy, there's a guy there in a jacket that she puts her hand out, he takes her hand and helps her down. That's Clark. I didn't notice that the first time I saw the movie. That was Clark. He was there already. And then we got another glimpse of him in the base without saying anything. We just got another quick glimpse. If you're not looking for him, you'll miss him. So you realize that he caught word of there being some kind of find there, and he was there to check it out. And then late at night, he goes up there, burrows his way using his heat vision through the ice. By the way, that cavern he created looked awesome.
Yeah.
Burrows his way through, gets in there, comes across the android, his own personal R2-D2 there, blah, blah. And then stumbles across, I don't know. I felt like it was built up, as at least, I don't know what you guys think.
You know, I wanted to make one more quick point that we haven't made yet. From a cinematography standpoint, this whole movie is shot handheld. It's never on sticks. The camera's never locked off. And one of the things that was a very specific choice because it's not shaky cam, but the camera's always floating, which gives it a realism. It's a subtle thing, but it creates a realism as opposed to cameras that are locked off on sticks or on a dolly or something. And I thought that was a really interesting way to approach this film. And I think it gives it, as I would like to say, added verisimilitude.
I like that too. All right, next up, 2 also writes, my favorite scene is Zod's message to the planet on his arrival. One of the best alien contact with human scenes ever. I think didn't they release that as a clip before the movie came out?
Yeah, they did.
You are not alone.
Yeah.
That was great.
I was just talking to you guys about that. Like, I agree with this guy, with what he's saying. Man, if an alien invasion were to happen, the scenes they showed on the TVs, it looked exactly like a real broadcast. I mean, that part was terrifying. Like when the lights turned off, I was saying how much tension there was when Clark was walking into the house. I was thinking something was going to come up behind him. I just really liked the feeling that scene gave me.
And it's great. That also plays into the whole idea that this is a science fiction first contact story, too. And I love that about this movie.
All right, next up, we've got Mike Hill who writes, time to talk about the most underrated movie ever. I really hope we see Henry as Superman again. If it gets revisited, do you think we will see Brainiac? I don't see them doing Brainiac. Now, here's an interesting thing. There was a show on, I can't remember if it was CW or Fox or the Sci-Fi Channel, I can't remember, called Krypton. I don't know if either of you guys watched it.
Yeah, I did.
A couple of years ago. And they had an interesting iteration of Brainiac. They had a pretty interesting way of approaching that. I actually thought Krypton was fairly good. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was pretty good. I don't know that I could see Brainiac done the way they do him in the animation. I don't know. What do you think?
From this movie onto a Brainiac, I just don't think it'll just jump way too far into the.
They would have to have a really interesting interpretation of Brainiac to make it work. And I could see like Perry White going, "What is this guy? Some kind of a Brainiac?" But he wouldn't be. You wouldn't see Brainiac come on and go, "I'm Brainiac 5."
The big question is, could you get Lawrence Fishburne back?
And also,
by the way, he was great.
Oh yeah,
he was great.
Perry White was awesome.
I don't want to talk about future villains because now after watching this movie, I do want a second part, and it's probably never going to happen. So let's not talk about who would be the next villain.
Well, I would love to see another one. All right, thanks a lot for that, Mike. Leo Liang writes, Superman be snapping necks in the film while Flash be snapping necks in real life.
I mean,
I'll just let that one go.
I mean,
yeah. All right, next up.
What's better than A-Train?
Yeah, yes. Mr. Hank Dunn writes, the fact that there's not a Superman movie that's in active development is almost sickening. I don't think the JJ movie will actually happen, so I'm scared we won't see Supes on the big screen for a while. I think it will happen. I really do think that JJ one is going to happen. Look, there are no less than 3 different Superman projects in the works right now. Because you got the J.J. Abrams one, you got the Michael B. Jordan one, and there was a third one. Oh, what was the third one? I remember us talking about a third one. I can't remember that. At any rate, I do think one of them is going to happen. But look, and I'm open to all of them. I am open to all of them. But I want a Henry Cavill Superman.
Yeah, me too. Wasn't it a Supergirl movie? There's
definitely Supergirl is in the works too. Yeah, maybe that's what I was thinking of. But
she's in Flash.
She's gonna be in Flash. So, and by the way, like there's this false narrative going around by people who don't understand anything. It's going, they replaced Superman with Supergirl. They didn't replace Superman with Supergirl. That implies that the reason we're not getting Superman back is because there was no room for him and Supergirl, and they want Supergirl instead. That's not what happened. What happened is they gave up on this Superman. That's what happened. It had nothing to do with Supergirl. Supergirl is not coming. To say that they replaced Superman with Supergirl is to imply that the reason we don't see Henry Cavill back as Superman is because they're bringing in Supergirl. Right. That is simply not the case at all. We've seen many times that DC doesn't mind having 18 characters running around with the name Super in front of it. Superboy, Super Lad, Supergirl, Crypto the Super Dog, Superman from this thing, Superman from this thing. We have the Justice Gods Superman. We have this Superman, we have that Superman. They didn't replace him with a female. They got rid of him. And they just also happen. They're no more replacing Superman with Supergirl than they're replacing Superman with Static Shock. It's just, they have nothing to do with each other.
So can we say, as soon as Batman versus Superman was concrete, we were getting that Man of Steel was done? There was no more chance of Man of Steel. Or was there a chance of Man of Steel 2 after Batman versus Superman?
I think if Batman versus Superman had done well and was received well, I do think another Man of Steel could have been on the books.
And they did roll right into Justice League after that, too.
And of course, that's on another tired drama story. Okay, let's keep going here. Thanks for that, Mr. Hank. All right, City of Swift writes, John, so cool to finally meet you last Friday. That's right. We met City Swift coming out of Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's right. It was good to meet you too, man. Anywho, Man of Steel and every Man of Steel and every this Superman is... Try this again. Anywho, Man of Steel and every this Superman is in a film. You probably meant every time. Man of Steel, and every time this Superman is in a film, I feel bad for him. He seems to be placed in hopeless positions, interesting as he's so mighty. But that's what you've got to do with Superman.
And that's why it's so hard to make another Superman movie.
Or any Superman movie. Because he is the God Man, you're constantly coming up with things he needs to struggle against. And in this movie, him struggling with his identity and then struggling with, he actually did meet a physical force that was greater than him.
Yeah.
And then having to struggle with a philosophical decision of, do I choose humanity or do I choose Kryptonians? And then he had to struggle with, do I choose not killing or do I choose saving the rest of the human beings in the world? I mean, they were constantly putting him in these positions that you've got to put Superman into for him to face any challenge.
And to feel any attachment to this person.
Yes.
Because it's like
Yes.
real life struggles that a superhuman is going through. That's the only way you could relate to Superman, other than dreaming of flying, because we all dream that we could fly like Superman. Other than that, there's no other thing we could relate.
You know, I've said that on this show before. There's a great Superman story where Superman also likes to be a good reporter. He likes Clark Kent to be accomplished as well. So in the world of this comic book story, which I think they should put in a film, Superman wants to go to this European conference to cover it for the planet. And Perry White says, all right, you can go, but you have to cover these 3 really mundane stories today and get them in on my desk before you leave tonight.
Right.
One's like an opening of a mall and
Like
and
a pet
you
show.
know, yeah, stuff like that. And so of course the toy man attacks Metropolis and all this stuff happens. So Superman does not, because he's being Superman, doesn't get to go to these innocuous openings and file the reports. So at the end of the day, he's not going to get to go be Clark Kent. And what happens is he gets back and Perry White's like, hey, thanks for the reports. And Lois knew and wrote the reports for him, put his name on them, and it was a great moment for them.
And that's what we could have got in this next Superman. Stories like that we all wanted to see. The newspaper Superman.
Well, yeah, like Superman he's not always Superman, he's Clark Kent. And we did get a little bit of that in Batman v Superman when he goes to Lex's party. I like that. Although he should have known who Bruce Wayne was.
But see, look, here's the thing too. With everybody being mad at Warner Brothers that there wasn't a Superman 2, I don't completely blame Warner Brothers.
I don't either.
Because the audience treated him like shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So many of the audience who didn't get the movie, that's not the kind of Superman I was expecting. Because the audience didn't get and understand what it was Zack Snyder and David Goyer and all of them were doing in making this film. It's because of them. Listen, if a studio looks at a movie and it financially underperforms and a whole bunch of the audience didn't like it, you are going to second guess whether you move ahead and financially. And then they had him in Batman versus Superman, and that movie underperformed. And then they had him in the theatrical Justice League, and that movie underperformed. I mean, if you're Warner Brothers, I get it. I would still have made a different decision, but I get where they're coming from. So it's a little bit of that. All right, we got to keep going here. Next up. Suthius writes, fighting between powerful otherworldly beings is probably some of the best I've seen in film. The way Feora moved from one Terran to another was amazing. I believe in the physics of them being there. Dude, when she starts wrecking the soldiers, just that boom, boom, and she was dispatching them in unique and creative ways. Every one of them she killed in a different way.
And it's terrifying.
Oh my God, it's so scary. And
It's
she's
terrible.
so hot.
And she don't care.
And she does not care.
There's
We'll
no
kill a
remorse.
million
There's
more.
no second thoughts. There's nothing.
Well, they're ants. Human beings are ants.
No,
to
and that's
them.
what was a terrifying thing about her. Her whole demeanor was insane.
And once they establish that, they establish the threat these people pose to everyone. They have no regard for human life at all.
Yep.
And it's terrifying.
All right. Next up, Mark Newman writes, the Pa Kent's death was my number one complaint. I prefer the heart attack in 1978 since Clark was powerless to stop it, and humbling after showing. I get that it was because Pa knew he wasn't ready to reveal himself to the world, but it just seemed out of place in a movie that otherwise I absolutely love. Well, I mean, obviously, Mark, you know that I disagree, because Pa Kent's death, what Snyder did was he used Pa Kent's death as a way to deepen the character and further the story. It wasn't just, yeah, he could have had Pa Kent just have a heart attack and, oh no, there's nothing I can do about it. But instead, he used Pa Kent's death to show the next step of evolution in Clark's development as a character, that not only was Pa Kent willing and wanted to die for his conviction that the world was not ready, we had to see that Clark had reached that level of maturity, that Clark was also at the point that he was going to honor his father and honor his father's wishes, and he understood what his father was talking about, because that becomes important later in the film.
course,
He didn't
yeah.
understand that.
But I would say that, okay, I would say this. The way that scene plays out, you know, holding up the hand and the tornado and all that, I think that it kind of strains credulity in the sense that they could have played that scene out better that was a little bit more believable. I think the way they set it up, it did smack a little bit of, now come on now. It's a tornado. You can't tell me Superman couldn't have figured out some way to save his dad. I think the scene could have been structured a little bit better.
Not without people seeing it.
Well, right, but I mean, as from a writing perspective, I think it was hard for an audience, even me.
Right.
I'm like, I like what happened. I think what happened had to happen, but I think from a writing perspective, they didn't quite nail it. If you're asking yourself, well, come on, he could have saved him. And I understand why he didn't.
Could have saved him.
But I mean, they could. It just seemed like, couldn't he have like gone around the corner and used super speed and gone to get him?
But he was standing there in the middle of all those people.
I know.
Right? Here's the one problem I had. Not the problem I had. The one thing I think could have been done better. Have Jonathan still out there for anything other than going to get the dog. Like for any other reason.
There was a gulf between them that suddenly opened up and there was no way to get across. But yes, to get the dog was a little...
Like that he was out there, that Jonathan was out there. I do think they could have come up with another reason why Jonathan was out there while Clark was still under the bridge.
Anybody who's watching the news in the afternoon yesterday in California saw that dog trapped in the water, LA River, and it took them so long for them to rescue it. So I get why he was running out. Yeah.
And there was a tornado.
I get the dog love, why Jonathan was going out there to get the dog, but come on.
All right. Next, thanks for writing that in, Mark. All right, next up. Blake62 writes, the best Superman stories always deal with Clark battling himself more than any villain. This movie understands that, and that's why it's great. I mean, that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because like the entire first 2 acts of the movie is Clark trying to understand himself. Who is he? What species is he? He doesn't even know what species he is, or the limits of what he can do, or how, or where he comes from, and why was he placed on this earth. It's all that stuff. And then even once we get into the third act, it's really, I mean, yes, he's confronting Zod, but he's also confronting a lot of his own questions.
Well, and John, in Superman the movie, as much as I love Donner's Superman the movie, Clark walks into the Fortress of Solitude after throwing the green crystal and then comes out 12 years later fully formed as Superman. Like they've been traveling through space-time and he's been learning all there is to learn from the 28 known galaxies. We never see his self-discovery.
Right.
We just see him walk to the North Pole and throw a shard. We'd never seen this before on screen. So it was all new to the audience. They'd never
That's
had
a great
something,
point.
Excellent
point. All right, David Poople Pie writes, love Man of Steel and love your show. Oh, thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here and joining us for Movie Club, man. Appreciate that. All right, our friend Fanjecture writes in, growing up, I wasn't a Superman fan. I thought the Donner movies were okay. This movie changed my whole perception of the character and what he could be. And before Rob yells at me, I wholeheartedly appreciate them for their place in film history, but I never connected with the characters like I did with Batman. I'm going to say this too, and I hate saying it. I don't think the original Donner Superman holds up all that well. And I know that's almost sacrilegious to say, but I mean, everything from the flying around the earth backwards to try to reverse time and some of the stuff with Otis and Lex and whatever. I mean, I still love Superman 2. I still love Donner Superman 2. I totally do. But the first one actually doesn't hold up for me.
I think it has big tonal problems. I think the first 30 minutes of the movie are incredible. And then you get to Metropolis and the tone is all over the place.
Don't ask me what Superman I like, because I actually like the one versus the Sun God.
With Nuclear Man?
Because it was actually a one-on-one, a foe. It reminded me of like a Rocky movie. One-on-one, strong guy versus strong guy.
When was the last time you saw Superman 4: The Quest for
I
Peace?
only saw it once, and I never saw it again.
Don't ever watch it again.
Neither of them compared to Superman 3, Superman versus the computer. That was remember that? Superman, like literally a computer is
and Richard
tying up.
Pryor is the tech genius.
This was during a time where I believe Ultimate Warrior really was bleeding from the head or throwing up from
Papa
the mouth.
Shango was putting the voodoo curse on him.
So
there's some WWE history for you. All right. And by the way, I'm not going to say who or what. I actually got a resume today from a former WWE superstar.
No.
Yeah. I did. It kind of made me smile.
Wow.
I'm not going to say who, but I showed Ray, though.
Don't tell Ryan at all. It'll kill him. It will kill him if you don't tell him.
I won't tell Ryan.
Just do it on purpose.
Okay, anyway, let's keep going here. Next up, Comic Nazir writes, there it is. A powerful scene to me was when Clark wasn't sure what to do if he couldn't have faith in humanity. And so he turns to faith itself and does go to the church, and he talks to the pastor. It gets me every time. I love that scene.
It's a great scene.
Because number one, it would be true to the upbringing that Jonathan and Ma Kent would bring him up in, number one. But it gave us a realistic environment that Clark could have that outward discussion. Because who was Clark going to have that discussion with? Couldn't with Lois. I don't think his mom was too close to the situation. So in talking about that, he goes, I don't know if I can have faith in people. I don't know if I have faith in that. And I love the advice the minister gives him. Number one, he says, okay, what's your gut tell you? My gut tells me I can't trust Zod, but I don't know if I can trust human beings. Sometimes you got to take a leap of faith.
Before you trust, or before you can trust, or something like that.
I mean, that's and I love that, because I've had this philosophical discussion with friends before. The issue, like people say, you got to earn trust, right? That's not true. Because somebody cannot earn your trust unless you make the choice to invest trust in them first so they can earn it.
Yes.
Right? And that's a scary thing. That's a leap of faith. Like, I can never trust this person unless I invest a little bit of trust in them to see if they follow through on it. Because you can't say, you got to earn my trust. Well, you can't earn trust unless you give me an opportunity to earn trust, and that will require you giving me some trust.
Yep.
And I love that when he says that to Superman. It's like, well, okay, because Superman says, my gut tells me I can't trust Zod, but I'm not sure if I can trust humanity either. And he says, well, the priest says, take a leap of faith then. Invest that trust. Believe. And see what happens. And I love that scene.
It's because it shows you too that he's not an alien. He's gotten accustomed to this human life. This is what humans do. Like things like this. Like they go to a place of worship
and you know I've always liked, I mean, I'm not a particularly religious person myself, but I like the portrayal of people of the cloth when they are who they say they are. Like, as much as I like, evil, satanic, all that stuff, I do like portrayals of because people of the cloth are seeking what does existence mean, and I think the very existence of Superman is a stand-in for a Messiah. So for Superman to go consult with a person of the cloth, I think is very, very important. And I like that scene that he gets good advice.
It shows invulnerability in him.
Yes, and a vulnerability. You're right, and an imperfection in Superman, which is great. All right, Aiden Foley writes, Man of Steel, good times before the internet had to debate if there was a watermelon in the bag or not. Analogy you made for the Snyder Cut was so good. Yeah, so that, of course, was the analogy that I used for a long time about, because people were saying that there was a Snyder Cut out there ready to be released. And I constantly said, no, there's not. No, there's not. There isn't. And there wasn't. And there wasn't. There was no such thing existed until Warner Brothers and HBO came around, put up $70 million so he could actually put it together and make it. But the analogy I would give people is, look, there is an edit out there.
There's always an edit.
There's an edit out there. Absolutely, Zack Snyder has an edit of a Justice League the way he envisioned it. Of course there is. But there's no completed, ready-to-be-released version. And that's what I kept telling people. And I kept telling, for a couple of years, Rob, I had people, yes, there is, John. It's ready. Zack Snyder says he has it. I said, Zack Snyder never said he had a completed, ready-to-go version of the movie. Yes, he did. Yes, it's there. And I keep saying, no. You keep telling me there are apples in the bag, that there's an edit of the film. But you're acting like there's a watermelon in the bag, and there are no watermelons in the bag. And I was right. There was no completed, ready-to-go version of the movie. And then it was always fun hearing these people try to backtrack and rewrite history and say, well, no, we always knew it wasn't finished. No, you didn't, because you argued with me for years that there was a completed, ready-to-go version of the movie, and I told you there wasn't. And now it's killing you to say I was right.
It's not an understanding of the process. By the way, people are still saying that, even today.
I know.
They put there's a video I watched the other day that I was in there. Oh, they're one of these people. I'm like, you mean me as a post-production supervisor? I don't know how post-production works. That's what you're trying to tell me.
All right.
Let's keep going on here. Next up, Rampage Predacon writes, hey, John and Rob, I love Man of Steel, but Superman 1978 is still my favorite superhero movie. But everything about Man of Steel was fantastic, especially the score. The score is absolutely incredible. And listen, Superman, the original motion picture, what was the tagline again? You'll believe a man can fly. I mean, it was the dawn of superhero movies. And I know I just said that, the original doesn't really hold up. But okay, whatever. But back in its context, back in its day, you gotta understand it. All these movies we have now that we get to celebrate, we're going to watch Moon Knight tonight. There would be no Moon Knight tonight if it wasn't for that Superman movie. That was the birth of Superman movies.
Well, that was
of comic book movies.
Yeah, I mean, there was a disconnect because people never looked at comic books that they could translate into the big screen and be viable as a big screen entertainment. They had the Batman TV series from the 60s. They had all the animated shows. They had Spider-Man on the Electric Company. But what Richard Donner did is create You'll Believe a Man Can Fly. You'll believe in the context of the real world, Superman could exist. And that verisimilitude, because that's what Richard Donner said he was going for when he made that movie. That's where I heard it in the behind the scenes. He did it.
All right, next up. We've got Black Rice 19 who writes, I really like this movie, but always felt there was too much action. So much that it becomes overwhelming. I wish the Indian Ocean stuff was cut. You know what? While I loved all the action in this movie, I thought the action was fantastic. If I had to say there was a scene that really needed some improving, it was that Indian Ocean scene. It was him going after the, what's it called? The World Engine. The World Engine. The Superman versus the World Engine, to me, in an otherwise absolutely brilliant film, was the one area that I think could have been done, that as an entire sequence could have been done and handled a little bit different. I didn't mind that it was another action beat.
Sure.
But I didn't feel stakes, because Superman is ultimately really, in a way, he's fighting an environment there, So I don't know. So I totally see what you're saying on that, Black Rice. I totally get it. All right. Tom Weinberg writes, Man of Steel led me to your channel, which made me a movie fan in general. And now I'm about to graduate film school. Dude, that is awesome.
Congratulations.
And always hold a special place in my heart. Well, it is so funny to this day, how many people I hear from that say, I first found you through the Man of Steel review. That review we did back in the AMC days. That's where I first found you. It's crazy to this day. And Tom, that is an awesome thing to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, man. It's amazing that we've kind of come full circle now.
Also, Tom, please don't forget us. When you become the big time director, I could use a small part.
Or the big time actor or producer.
Or big time actor. I'm just kidding.
Whatever you are. Don't forget us, the little people, Tom. Don't forget us. All right. Next up, we got Wildebeest. Sends in like a $20 super chat to support the channel. Thank you, man. He writes, as an immigrant and a first-generation American, Man of Steel resonated with me, and I appreciate it more each year. This movie epitomizes what it means to be an alien in a foreign country. For me, kids staring at me for needing ESL as a new student. I can't even imagine. I mean, theoretically speaking, Wildebeest, I am also a first-generation American. I'm an immigrant. A first generation, even though Canada is practically the U.S., we practically share the same pop culture.
America's hat.
Yeah, Canada.
America's hat.
America's toque is what we call it. So, anyway, that is awesome to hear. And it's true. Like, within Superman, guys, there's always been, in every iteration of Superman, a lot of symbolism. Whether it's the notion of the foreign immigrant who's made his way to a new home in a new world, an alien in a strange land idea, a lot of messianic imagery as well. Superman is always, from the very beginning of that first Action Comics where Superman's holding the car above his head, there's always been deep, rich symbolism in every iteration as they go. So you can almost define the different eras of Superman by the imagery that the artists were going for with him.
Remember, even when Superman was created, he didn't fly. He leapt tall buildings in a single bound.
Which is kind of what they did in this movie, that to start off with, even when Superman gets a suit, he's not flying. He's just jumping mountains in single bounds. That's what he's doing. So there's a little bit of even imagery towards the origins of the character himself, which I thought was kind of cool. All right. Tom Weinberg writes again, Man of Steel also reinvigorated my love for Superman, which was born with seeing Dean Cain on TV. It is my comfort film for so many reasons. I'll let you know what. I think in my life I saw like 2 or 3 episodes of Lois and Clark. That was no. What was it called? Superman and Lois?
Superman and Lois.
Yeah. I saw like 2 or 3 episodes of it.
No, it's Lois and Clark.
Lois and Clark.
The new one is Superman and Lois.
Superman and Lois, right.
Okay, so Lois and Clark. Dean Cain and a girl who went on
Terry
to be
Hatcher.
who went on to be a Bond girl, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken.
In the same movie that Michelle Yeoh went on to be a Bond girl in Tomorrow
That's
Never
right.
Dies.
Did you ever watch Superman Lois?
Yeah,
Or, sorry,
I liked
Clark
it.
and Lois? Or Lois
I mean,
and
it was
Clark,
more of a
called?
rom-com, but it was fun.
All
I
right.
liked it.
Anne loved that show.
Did Anne watch it?
Ask her. She recorded them on VHS tape every time they came up.
All right. Okay.
Ask her.
Learn new things all the time about my wife. All right. Tom Weinberg also writes, favorite scene, Clark coming home to his mother after he's found his people. I love this relationship with his mom and dad in this. So human. I also loved it. And like, there's something so real about it too when he says he's so happy I found my parents. And like any adopted parent hearing that's a mixed bag, right? Like, of course you're so happy for your child. There's also a part of you that whatever. And the way he tries to compensate for that with her and all that kind of stuff. You yourself were adopted by
I was adopted.
your parents. So what do you
Yeah.
think about what Tom's
Well,
mentioned there?
I agree. I mean, John, I used to believe when I was a kid that I was an alien prince secreted away on Earth to hide me from an encroaching alien
I think
army.
I remember you saying something about that like just 3 weeks ago. So I don't know if it was when you were a kid. You probably still think that a little
yeah,
bit.
maybe. But no, you are that way. I mean, you do have these thoughts. But I was a kid that I was very happy with where I lived. My adopted sister always wanted to know, who are my birth parents? I never cared. I ended up finding out because I found out I had a 100% biological sister who found me. And that came down the pike. But I never felt apart. I was lucky. I had a great upbringing. So
Can I also say one of my favorite, involving Ma Kent, one of my favorite scenes in the movie too, is when Zod and Feora go to the Kent farm looking for the Codex, and they start throwing around Superman's mom. I remember being in the theater going, oh, you fucked up. Oh my God, you fucked up. And then that Superman flies out of nowhere and he's beating the shit out of Zod going, you threatened my mother. And I'm like, that shit's going to hit the fan. I love that. Oh, I love that scene so much. It makes me so happy just thinking about it. Okay, anyway, let's keep going here. Matt Sanders writes, I'm still just so happy thinking about that scene. Okay, Matt Sanders writes, Man of Steel is still my favorite DCU movie. Mine too. Loved every choice they made in this movie, from the actors to the cinematography. Listen, when you look at the casting, Diane, I almost said Diane Keaton.
Diane Lane.
Diane Lane, Kevin Costner, Henry Cavill, who was a revelation to the world and stuff like that. Michael Shannon. I just top to bottom, Harry Lennox.
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe as Jor-El. Every one of those decisions was so well made, man. You're absolutely right about that, Matt. All right, Danny Tatman writes, when this movie came out, I loved it. Nobody else did, and I was confused as to why. I learned to hate this movie for no reason. I love it again. I mean, listen, it is true in film fan. Look, we all need to have our own minds about movies, but it is true. I think sometimes when we don't like a movie and everybody loves it, we kind of maybe convince ourselves to love it a little bit. Or when a movie comes out and we loved it, but then we find out everybody else hated it, well, maybe I'm not supposed to like it. And that's natural and that's human. But I just know I didn't give a crap what anybody thought about that movie. When I watched that movie for the first time, I was so taken with it. And I fall more and more in love with this movie every time I watch it.
Yeah, me too. Even today, I just caught the end of it, but I was watching going, God, man, I really like this movie.
Ah, so good. All right. Tony Rios writes, I never bought into the whole notion of, this is Clark Kent learning to be Superman. So that gives us a reason why Superman let an oil tanker fly by him and blow up a building. It's common sense, right? Block it. Again, you are missing the point. Well, like, it's not like we say, I never bought into this notion, it's Clark Kent learning to be Superman. That's not a notion.
Right.
This is a farmer who just found out that he's Kryptonian and is only beginning to touch, just learned how to fly, 8 hours earlier. And he is probably, as far as we know, never, Rob, I want you to hear this. Listen, I'm going to go to this camera. Listen to this. This Clark Kent has never had a fight in his life. Hear that. That Clark Kent, who is now fighting against genetically bred soldiers, has not once in his entire life ever been in a fight. Think about that. And then all of a sudden, audience members are saying what he shouldn't be doing. He has never been in a single fight in his life. He's never been hurt in his life. He's never taken a punch in his life or really legitimately given one out. So this whole notion of, oh, he's just learning to be super, that's not just some random arbitrary thing. That is the very core to understanding who and what he is in that given context and situation.
That exact scene he's talking about, I brought it up to you when we were watching it, right? Remember when I was like, oh, so you just let the buildings, but I was being very sarcastic.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what? People are mistaking. Clark can't see the future. You know, he just was protecting himself. He jumped over a truck that was thrown at him. I think you need to give the humans in this film more credit. If buildings are falling down, you're running away from where that is. So I'm just assuming that those people in that building weren't, oh no, we're just going to stay in here and wait for rescue. You're running out of that building. I'm trying to believe that humans are smarter, that there was no one in that building. Everyone evacuated at that moment, you know, so it's just a building. Things can be rebuilt.
Well, I mean, I think that's a common misconception is everybody wants to be Superman, the fully formed Superman in this film. They're not understanding that all of this mayhem that has arisen, he has no idea how to deal with this. Like you said, John, it's not just that he can't throw a punch or he's never taken a punch. He's also never had to run around and grab people or buildings that are falling and while people are trying to kill him at the same time. He's never had to deal with any of that. It's all new. And he's not some great tactician. Yeah. He doesn't understand. Like he knows he can go rescue guys off an oil derrick and stop things from falling down, but he doesn't know he can even do battle. He's never been trained for it.
And it's just unfortunate that oil trucks seem to have just get filled up at that moment.
Yeah,
it was at the fullest.
Topped up, ready to go. But I think you're right, Rob. People expect, they see the S and they expect this is a fully competent, combat ready, experienced and competent Superman. This is a farm kid who's never been in a fight in his life because his father would never let him be in a fight in his life. And now all of a sudden he's trying to fight genetically trained.
Imagine what it was like for him to get hit in the face or hit anywhere and have him fly back through buildings blocks away and land. What did that feel like? He'd never felt that ever.
Nope.
How did it ring his bell? We don't know. I mean, he's literally being hit with the force of something that is not on Earth. So it's never happened. And how do you survive that? How do you be like, whoa?
And how do you fight it when you've never been in a fight in your life?
Imagine those people that got hit by him when he was flying back.
Yeah, not good.
They were disintegrated.
Not good. All right, let's keep going here. And this is our last question of the day. It comes to us from Brooks Kirk, who writes, Michael Shannon is Zod. That is all. Kirk out. I'm telling you what, man. I didn't know much about Michael Shannon. I mean, there was Boardwalk Empire, but I didn't know much of Michael Shannon when I saw him in this. And I was taken with him immediately. Like the moment he busts into the Kryptonian chamber and is basically creates the coup. And by the way, he was right. When he's overthrowing the Kryptonian government, he was right. He's like, you fools led us to this destruction. It's like, check. Yep, they certainly did. When he says, you should have listened to Jor-El. Check. He's right about that. You have brought this catastrophe upon us. Yeah, check. That checks. I mean, everything about what Michael Shannon was saying, I was saying that was completely right. But there was something about the fury and the power of Zod that I just thought Michael Shannon. I mean, he couldn't have been further from the actor's name who played Zod in
Terrence Stamp.
Terrence Stamp. Chancellor Valorum. But yeah, Terrence Stamp, not to take anything away from Terrence Stamp's Zod, but I'm just saying there's something about that, the way that Michael Shannon played that was so absolutely perfect. I'd say a good 20% of the reason I love this movie so much is because of Michael Shannon's portrayal of Zod. He's so damn good. By the way, guys, I just want to throw out there too that Never Lose Your Nerd, Philly G, Future Millionaire, and Irene Jobson all send in super chat badges just to be supportive. Future sent in like a $10 one. Thank you, guys. Thank you to all of you for that. And guys, that will draw to a conclusion this assembly, this particular meeting of Book Club. Thank you guys for being here talking about one of my favorite comic book movies. Sorry, Movie Club. It's based on a book club.
We can read books.
We can read books. Maybe next time we should do. But thank you for being here for this, talking about one of my favorite movies, my absolute most underrated comic book film of all time, Man of Steel. Now, just so you know, we talked about this on the John Campea Show earlier today. Next week, we can let you know our movie club, which did a little bit of change of plans because I found out Ray had never seen it yet. We are going to do what I consider to be one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time, my second favorite action film of all time, Aliens. We're going to talk about the Sigourney Weaver masterpiece movie, Aliens. Make sure you guys get caught up. You got an entire week to get caught up. Go watch it again, and we will meet back and convene here again for Movie Club next week. I want to thank, of course, joining us, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people follow you online?
John, you can find me on Instagram at RMBurnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, and you can find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
And of course, Ray Aura. Ray, where can people follow you?
At Ray Aura with a 0. Can I just say one thing, John?
Absolutely.
You know, when you first thought up this movie club, I was so pushed back on it because I just, you know, how I feel about speaking and being on camera. But you know what? A couple of these movies, I actually appreciate what the show has brought me, especially with this Man of Steel. Now I kind of want, I want Man of Steel too. And now I have to go through the burden of knowing that it will never exist. Because the the Zack Snyder thing is done. That's all over with. Yeah. Whatever chance we had that opportunity before to rally and get it. And I just feel bad that I didn't appreciate this movie as much as I did when I watched it again. And that's what Movie Club brought me. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to. So I'm looking forward to Aliens. Let's see if we could get this 100%. Make it 100% still.
And you've never seen Aliens, have you?
Nuh-uh. So it's been Indiana Jones, The Godfather, the second watching of this, and hopefully Aliens will join the list of, wow, I should have watched that, or I should have appreciated it more.
It will.
I really hope you watch it over here with us, because I got to rewatch it too. I'd love to see you watch it, because it's just such a damn good movie. Anyway, guys, that will do it for this installment of Movie Club. Guys, by the way, there is an audio version of this. If you want to go back and revisit this just in audio format, if you're driving or if you're at the gym or whatever, just go on your favorite podcasting app of choice and search for Movie Club, a John Campea podcast. Just go and search for that. You should be able to find it. Sign up to it. And do me a favor, guys, when you do go and sign up for it on your favorite podcasting app of choice, this would help out the podcast a lot. Can you guys make sure you rate it and leave a comment on it? That would be great if you did it. It'll help spread the word and spread visibility of the podcast to other people as well. All right, guys, that'll do it for us for now. Thanks for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, I will find him.